Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. And if you have the copy of the board agenda, on the first side of it, there is the Green Hills AEA Director for Convention, and there was a meeting at 5 o'clock. And Al, as being the appointee, was also made the presiding officer, and so that got accomplished at 5 o'clock. And so we can flip the page and move on to tonight's Board of Directors regular meeting, October 17, 2022 at 5:15. And we see that Albertson and Blatt are on the Finance Committee, and for policy is Larson, Hertzberg, and Reichel. And so the first order of business is to call the meeting to order and determine a quorum. And I believe, Catherine, we have a quorum, so we can go forward. And I believe Joe was ill tonight. And what else? Greg is, yes. Yes, he's watching his daughter at volleyball. That's a good thing. So we'll call the meeting to order. And so we want to first note that this is a public forum, and we have had, and we always invite the citizens to come to the board meetings. There is some procedures that we'll need to talk about if we have any citizens that requested tonight to speak to the board. So there's no public forum tonight. And so the next item is to approve the agenda. And any discussion on the agenda itself, any changes or anything, or questions? Okay, if there's no discussion on that, could I have a first on the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
So moved by Monty, and a second?
Second.
I think Al was first on that, so we'll go with Al. And so we've approved the agenda. The next is D, discussion items, and we'll turn it over to Dr. Jenny Barnett.
Okay, well, we are gonna, there's several different contracts in here. We'll talk about the bonds, the general obligation bond, and save money, and Brian can answer questions a little bit later, maybe. Just to keep on your radar as a board, there's several special board meetings that we're probably going to have that might just have one or two things on the agenda just to get the process moving for selling the bonds and starting the bidding and different pieces like that. So November 1st is one that we do have to have a special board meeting just to have a hearing for one of the bonds, the bond sales. Sales tax bond. And then and right now that's at 5:15, but we can have a discussion too, because the super board meeting is that day as well, so we can figure out if people want to go to the super board meeting. We just need a quorum here for the hearing. Also, the week of November 7th, we will need to have another special board meeting, so we can decide as a board when we want to have that as well. Regular board meeting is on the 21st of November, and then we'll have to have one more special board meeting the week of December 5th to get things, I think, settled and all rolling. So we can discuss those things as a board as we get closer to those and times. But I just wanted to kind of keep those on your radar. And then Friday in my board notes, I will put the actual timeline. We had a couple different iterations from our lawyers, so I just want to make sure we have the right one before I send it out to you. So I'll send it out Friday, so you guys can kind of see the timeline for it. And then the rest of my report, I'm going to introduce Ann Heithoff. Ann has been working super hard on the safety plan, and she's been working with emergency management, the sheriff's department, the police department, the fire department. RJ's been very involved, and as have our administrative team, but Ann's taken the lead and done a lot of extra work. So she came tonight to talk to us about safety.
Awesome, thanks. So earlier in the month, we introduced, it's called a Stop It app. And we got the app free through our STOP grant. So Stop It is an app that you can download on your phone, or you can also access it through your laptop. And what you can do is you can, if you feel that there is some type of threat that is going to happen to the school, like if you have a tip, you can submit your tip anonymously. So if you think, you heard a student tell a group of friends they were going to beat someone up after school in the parking lot. And if a student doesn't want to come forward and report that in person, they could report that type of tip on the app. Then it's filtered through to the correct administrator. So if it's an elementary tip, Jeff or I will get it. If it's a high school tip, then Casey Ring would get it. And then once we get it and decide who needs to look into it, we can then assign personnel in our district to investigate those things. If a student witnesses something and if they have pictures or a video, they can upload that as well. We've had a few submissions, but not anything, I don't want to say super threatening because I feel like the people that made the tip feel like it was super threatening, but it was very easy, it was managed in an easy way. One was peanut products brought to lunch, and another one was kicking on the bus. So those are things that, they were investigated, we took care of it, it was a teachable moment, and then you close it out. If it would be that we feel like we needed more information, you can have an anonymous conversation with that person through the app. So if we needed to ask questions, we could ask questions anonymously. So it's free for a year, and then after a year, we can decide if we want to buy it and use it as a district. And I don't know how much that is, so I just thought it might have been a good thing to know, but I don't.
And is it on our website?
Oh, you know what? I think we were gonna get it up when Ashley
Comes
is
back.
back, yes.
Okay.
We did send out a newsletter to parents with like our code, because we didn't want kids just to have access to it at school without parental permission. So we wanted the parents to give the permission to the student to download the app on their phone.
Did everybody, what was the first, did everybody?
You know what, I don't know, and I don't know if people just are kind of keeping it in their back pocket, like, well, I know it's there and if I need it, then I'll use it. I'm not sure. One thing we were a little concerned about was, and someone actually brought this up when we were bringing it up with staff, is, I don't know how Miss Daniels put it, but she said, some of our kids can be kind of ornery, and so what if they submit something that's false? Well, hopefully we would find that out through the investigation, but if it's a repeat tipper, they have the same identification number every time they submit it, so you can go in and say, well, maybe you need to take a break from the Stop It app for a while. So that is also one of the options that we can kind of enforce if we feel it's necessary. I think that's.
Well, I just pulled it up on mine, so if as soon as somebody submits something, it automatically sends me a text, and then I can look at it right away,
Yes.
and then assign it, or just figure Ann's got it, or whoever's got it, and then there's pending, you can see if it's still sitting in there and we're working on it, or if there's new messages, so it's anonymous, and that's the good thing, and I do think there is a code specifically just for Harlan so that someone from another district can't do something ornery or put in information about a student that might not be true. So, and we shared it with kids. I mean, all the kids have access to it as well as the parents know.
They watched a video and it kind of talked about how to submit an app and what kinds of situations, you should or should not. So that was also kind of a teachable moment for the kids.
And what grade, how?
We showed it K-12.
Okay, so any age
Yes.
that has a phone can
Yeah.
have access to it.
Yeah, and parents, like
Mhm.
public, people of the public can use it as well.
It's like there's a threat. Yeah, you can take a picture and upload it. You can take a video and upload it. It's
Yes.
pretty.
And if there would be, like, let's say there was a tip that was urgent, like very dangerous, gonna happen, if they don't get then there's a separate way they would notify Jenny or Jeff, And if they don't get a response from Jenny or Jeff, then they would immediately notify your local authorities. So there is kind of like even one of the tips that I got, the app person was asking them questions. So I could see the dialogue between the submitter and the person that is employed by the app company. They were kind of asking more questions and kind of getting some more details, which made it great for me because then, you know, it was.
So it goes to that office
Yes.
first.
And then they
And
filter
then
it.
they filter it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it was kind of, for ours, you know, you have those students that have not unique names, you know, like not Mary, not Brian. And so there was a name, I was like, oh yeah, I know who that is. Like they didn't know the last name, but they knew the first name. Well, that's the only kid probably in the whole district that has that first name. So you were like, okay, that made it easy. So. The other thing that we're working on is our evacuation reunification plan. We sent a team to Logan Magnolia, and they did we observed their drill. So they did a hold, and then they did a lockdown, then they did a hold, then they did an evacuate and a reunification drill with their district. And so we observed that, we talked about our procedure, how our drill is supposed to run, and then found some loopholes and some things that people weren't quite sure about. So, and we have a lot of new staff, and so we haven't practiced that for a while. So I think the next step on our agenda is to get our administrators together to formulate the bones of our plan, where we want our kids to go if we evacuate. Once they get to that spot, are we gonna bus them somewhere else? How's that gonna look? And then once we get the bare bones kind of planned, then we're gonna invite our emergency management team in so they can say, yeah, that's not gonna work, or that'll work great, or this is where your kind of holes are. One amazing thing that we have with our district right now are our walkie-talkies. And so in the plan, they talk about getting the special walkie-talkies from a certain area. Well, now all the administrators have them. So that's something that, you know, would need to be revised, and like our secretaries all have them. So, you know, just little things like that in our plan that we kind of have to get solidified so that if this ever does happen, I know it's a scary situation, but we should have something in place so we know what we're going to do and where we're taking our kiddos for that situation, so.
And then this plan, we will, we're working on, because if we are subject to getting $50,000 from the state of Iowa, every district is on their, to use towards safety. So we'll use this plan and then submit that, and then they'll also do an assessment. So all of it is kind of aligning, so we're not doing work for nothing. We're gonna, this is gonna benefit us too, and we're gonna get $50,000 to use towards some type of safety measure, so.
So that's kind of where we're at now, is kind of re-looking at that plan, then getting together with that team, and then hopefully practicing that plan in kind of the way that Logan Magnolia does.
In regards to issues, I've really appreciated the last, 7 or 8 months, how the administration has responded. Because, you know, these things come up, and if you can tamp them down early, it seems like it doesn't get to be big issues. So I've really noticed that and appreciated it.
Well, even the walkie-talkies seem like not a big deal, but we had a runner out of our building was running towards the high school, and, you know, you try not to chase because then they run faster, but you obviously have to keep your eyes on them, and so I just switched to the high school channel, and I said, I have a runner, he's crossed the street, he's now in the parking lot. And there were 3 gals outside before my little kiddo could get to the middle of the parking lot, and they just kind of stood around him, and he just stopped. And I was like, yes, because you know, you want them to be safe, and when they get that far, gosh, you know, that's a scary situation. So even just that piece is helpful. So those walkie-talkies are amazing for
Isn't that
helping.
how it got him down there last week?
Pardon me?
That's how it got him down there last week into the office.
Got
too?
who?
Mr.
Yes.
The walkie-talkie.
Yes. Oh, yeah, when you were making copies, yes, it did. And it gets RJ, like if he's at the high school and we need him, you just, you can switch to the high school and
It has a
He's there.
scan function to where I can program a couple channels together, so if I'm in the high school on the high school channel and the middle school calls, I can still hear the middle school and switch over to that channel. So it works well to be able to communicate. And I took the walkie-talkie all around town, and I can get reception in most places all around town. So if I have to run back to the office at the sheriff's office or somewhere across town, I can keep my radio with me and still hear the school and run and communicate through that.
And Jeff was at Nishna Bend at a kindergarten field trip and we could.
Yeah, we get just like next door service.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah. And it's nice you can switch to the buses. So when you're having a student that you can't find on the buses,
Nurse, recess.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They've been really helpful. Casey has said that too, the high school, and she's not feeling well today either, but, so she went homesick, but, she said that too, that it was, because they're kinda heavy and you're like, but it's just nice to have.
It is. It is
I know
nice.
Davis likes them at the football games, cause then we all can
Yeah.
talk to each other from yards and yards away,
Yeah.
so.
So that's kind of where we're at safety-wise, so. And then maybe, if we get that $50,000 grant, it would be nice if each, like especially in our building, if each grade level had their own walkie-talkie. Because then when they go out to recess, we're doing fine sharing, but there are just different times where, if kindergarten goes on a field trip and they want to take it, then first grade needs it for recess, so it'd be nice to have a few more, so.
I appreciate the feedback because I know there's been years of discussion with walkie-talkies and
Yep.
different ones. Do we change? Do we improve them? And so,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times where, you're kind of like, hey, kind of being funny, but they're very useful for
it's good
emergency. And
that's good to hear.
I mean, we had a student have a diabetic reaction on the playground.
Couple times actually.
And the nurse was like, I need orange juice, like now. And so we, got it faster than we would have gotten it, because so many people can hear. And so, if you call one person and they're not in the office,
Yeah, you don't.
you might
it's
not get your
just
orange.
phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can,
There's lots of people that can hear, and today, the nurse heard, and she said, I'm on my way. So,
So how many do we have?
we have 40.
40.
40?
And that was started before Lynn, or when Lynn was here, and then they were just on order, so we just got them.
Okay.
So it
The
took-
FCC stuff
It-
takes
it-
forever.
Yeah, you
Then I
approved
see
them
my-
probably about 2 years
March
ago.
of, March of,
Yeah,
March of last year.
March of last year, okay.
is when we just got them.
That's March of last year is when we approved them.
But we had
No.
some,
Lynn
I know
approved
we-
them.
2 years ago.
Lynn approved them.
Okay, March of, you're right.
'cause I know there was different ones.
Yeah, it
and
wasn't
discussed
me,
it
I
in
just
a few
knew it was.
Yeah,
meetings.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
discussed a
Yeah.
few different ones.
But it just took forever for them
Mhm.
to
A
get
year.
ordered, and then they had to put an antenna, because they had to do all the channels, it's a process.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm glad it's working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, definitely.
Yeah.
That's always good to hear.
Thank you, Ann, she's done a lot of extra work on
Yeah,
safety
Yeah,
stuff.
thanks for the
so.
feedback.
yeah, no problem. Now I'm gonna leave, because my son plays football at 6.
Football game tonight.
Oh, go.
Freeze.
Yeah, see you later.
See ya.
Okay, then we,
She's leaving, but I help make copies for the
Yeah.
5th grade and the 3rd grade, and I was in making copies inadequately because the machine is extremely smart. But there was something going on in the room, and she handled it very well. She was very calm, didn't freak out. There were multiple of us in there, and she was like, hey, I'm just gonna have you guys all step out, shut the door. She said, somebody please call him, and she handled it really well, so
So
she
they
did an
they
excellent
work,
job.
yeah.
And the walkie-talkie obviously worked.
Worked, yeah, yeah, well, good.
Not that I think she wouldn't, but
Yeah.
it's worth saying.
Okay, so the next thing, administrator reports, so Casey wasn't feeling well, Bill is at volleyball watching his daughter play, so Steve and Jeff are here, and RJ, we like to have RJ here, thanks. So I'm gonna, pull the student accolades up, I'm assuming it starts with Jeff?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, so we have our Student Citizens of the Week up there. And I must not have sent any Staff Citizen of the Weeks this week, or this month, sorry. And then down there below is the Knights of Columbus. Donated money for Special Olympics. So a couple of representatives from there. Donnie Kinkle is on the right. That's who came and presented. I'm not sure the other gentleman's name. Eva Labor is there on the left. She's the Special Olympics sponsor. And then a couple of 3 students who are Special Olympics students. So those are our accolades for this month. We have a teacher every month or every week as well, but I don't think I sent those to you, so
Cow.
sorry. Yes, our cow. I think I've described the cow before. I think the kids like that more than they do the student one, just because they get to moo at the teachers.
So here are the middle school ones for Bill. It looks like he did some walkthroughs here. They're studying potential versus kinetic energy, healthy smoothies, and ramen noodles. That's always fun.
I don't think there's such a thing as
There might
healthy
be,
ramen.
I don't think there is. He didn't put healthy in front of that. And then student council volunteering at Special Olympics. So Special Olympics, they had, was it bowling?
Bowling.
Yes.
And, yep, and then pancakes in the independent living class there with Mrs. Kurtz, it looks like. And then Casey, I don't know, do you want to talk about these, Catherine, or did Casey give
She
you-
just sent me a bunch of fun homecoming pics, so all of these are homecoming pictures. We had seniors, I believe senior boys dressing, well, the boys dressing the cheerleaders and the girls dressing togas. And then one day they had anything but a backpack, so this girl got a little shopping cart, that's fun. Then we have the Powder Puff game. And, the teachers won the volleyball match. There, more Powder Puff, I believe. And then there's a whole nother page.
Oh, she's got that.
Yep. The parade, this upper left is also anything but a backpack.
Oh,
You can
yeah,
see
you can kind of see the
one-
different things they brought for anything
yeah,
but a
one-
backpack.
it looks like one guy
Trash.
carried around a 2-door filing cabinet all day long.
Yeah,
Like,
they had a microwave. It was interesting. And then this is Mr. Sandquist, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually think that's the other day, I think the military was here
Yeah.
recruiting and you had to do
National Guard.
pull-ups
He was doing
and
Hit his
you'd
head.
hit your head. And then the 2 dad bods are dressed like your dad. And then
That is-
anything but a backpack.
Tanya with anything but a backpack, but she also put the other costume on too. If you've ever seen Tanya gets into the costumes. She is always the best. You gotta go find her first and see what she's got on. Yeah. So that was a fun week, homecoming. It was perfect outside for the parade. Okay, and then I think just the other thing that we need to decide as a group too is just to talk about the legislative resolutions. So Jim, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about those or.
You know, I looked through them and I thought, Al probably knows more about this than anybody. So I was wondering what you were thinking. Because I know you're very good at advocacy, I guess is what we call it.
Well, it's one of the things I really think is important for us. I've looked at the IASB priorities, and I think, I don't see anything that I feel like we would differ from those. So I think, of course, when we get to delegate assembly, we'll look at all of them and come up with the priorities, but I think these look good of dropout, at-risk, mental health, of course, teacher recruitment, licensure, the school funding, of course, supplemental state aid is really important, and so I remember, yeah, that was kind of the main ones, their priorities. I like those, but I'm not, you know, we as a board need to
I
come up
think
with.
special education is important too.
Yeah.
I looked at some of those, there's an Iowa one and a federal one listed on the options. I look at this as like a Christmas list, a Christmas wish list. You have all this stuff that you have or you want, and you can only pick the top 5. So it's kind of like, it's hard to sometimes, I think, pick the top 5 because the majority of them are all very good.
Yeah, and, you know, each one of them really, I imagine, represents a rabbit hole that it's hard to weigh which ones are more important than the other, I imagine.
Yeah, right.
For example, just the dropout at risk, which is extremely important. The reason that they want people to lobby for that is because it's inequitable based on districts. So like we get all of the funding for our dropout and prevention because a while back we said we wanted whatever percentage it was, and but Waukee, for example, at one time went below, like they said, no, we don't need all of that funding, or they weren't spending the funding, so they took some of it away. And now, like we might be at 5%.
We're at the 5%, and you have some districts are at 2.5. I think there's actually some of them even lower than that, and very few. There's a lot of them there at 2.5.
So that funding we can use for anything to help to ensure that a child doesn't drop out of school, which can be cleared from Jeff's like attendance, because that's an indicator. If they have poor attendance or poor grades, or there's lots of things, but we get the full 5%, and Waukee, for example, gets 2.5, I think. So what they're lobbying for is that everybody gets 5%. So it's great that they're lobbying for that, but I guess I would suggest we don't lobby for that as a board, because we already have what we need. Not that that's not important, and I don't want to help other districts, but there's other things on here, I guess. So.
And if I understand it right, the legislative committee wants to know what our priorities are.
IASB does want to know just what our priorities are, because they ask all districts, and then.
At delegate assembly, they'll all be listed, and then it'll show which districts support which of the priorities, and Joe will be our delegate at that. And I'll be with him that day too, but he'll be the one speaking for
Pushing the vote
the
button.
Harlan.
Or on your phone.
Yeah, or holding up the card, whatever you have the vote button on the phone now, they used to hold up cards.
Yeah.
But, so there'll be some really great discussion going on that day. But if there's any others that we think we want to have included in there, we certainly, that's what we can do today.
But we received a letter from someone that said we need to know it now. Is
We
that
need to
correct?
choose,
Before
if
the-
possible,
I
we
think
need to choose our top 3 to 5 priorities. So, I don't know what that, if you guys want to take another chance and look at this, and then we could put that on our agenda on November 1st too, and vote on those, if you'd rather do
Did they-
that.
When did they want them by?
I just think
can't
it was- yeah.
remember.
They
It
need
used to be
them,
like August, but,
well, yes, they need them sooner than
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
But I don't want to push people either. I mean, that's why I sent it out Friday, but I guess preschool is always one that's on
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
because you only get half of the funding for each preschooler that you have, and
yeah.
so,
Question, would this be something that a committee would be, I mean, like Joni and Monty and Al have been around, and all this is new to me, and,
Joe would have.
Well, you'd want Joe
Yeah.
definitely
Oh,
on
yeah,
there because he speaks for us at delegate assembly, so.
and come up with something before next November 1st, some ideas that you think would be appropriate?
Is the preschool one the same as the early childhood one? Because I did look at that one today too. But I don't know
early
if it's-
literacy, there's early literacy,
Okay,
and then there's the preschool.
they're different though.
It'd be different.
Okay, because I did look at the early
It's
literacy
two
one
different
too.
funding
but-
streams.
Which both are,
What's that?
It's 2 different funding streams.
Okay.
If we pick 3, would Joe and Al and Joni, mind if I exclude you?
Yeah,
Monty?
no, that's fine. Yep.
Do 3 on a committee, would that be a good idea?
Sure.
We could do that and then meet somehow and just
Yeah.
say, okay.
Talk over the phone or whatever.
Yeah. Because, you know, any of them, they'll all kind of show up that day at delegate assembly, and then they just, it's just good that we can come in and say, these are important to us.
Mhm.
So the dropout and at-risk, are our numbers any
Are
higher?
you still
Do we
above
know
state
that?
average?
Other than
Oh,
the-
yeah. Yeah, we're doing just fine, and that, again, it's extremely important to me. That's pretty much my whole past is what I've done in my career, but that specific lobbying is just for the funding, and we get the 5%.
Yeah.
So we don't
Right.
need somebody to lobby for
Yeah.
that because we're already getting it.
So we don't, yeah, right.
And I'm not saying it's not important, but it's not necessarily
We might have a
something
different
we
one
would
that-
want. Yeah,
for our
that we would rather
situation
put
that
at
we
the
need
top
to-
side, yeah.
The whole mental health thing is so important, and
Yeah.
that'll be important for us to, and I'm sure it's important to a lot of districts. So that one probably will be on the high list for all of the districts.
I would think too, teacher recruitment and
Uh-huh.
licensure is
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
high on that.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
I would agree, and they have started doing some things to make it a little bit easier to get a license.
Well, that's part of our IJAC program, right?
You mean
Which was that they can take what they're doing now as paras and put it towards.
the grant, yes, it's not IJAC, but there's a
Okay,
grant,
it's a different
yes,
grant,
yeah, the
okay.
TRPA grant, yes, you're right.
So I kind of heard this, and maybe you guys would know, that I heard statistically, we're not even seeing the highest teacher shortage that there's going to be, that they're looking at 2024 to 2025 maybe could start to be where the fallout happens, because those graduating now and maybe in the year coming from now, were already in school, already had education as their major, and it was like, well, I'm not gonna switch education now. So we potentially aren't seeing, would you agree with that? We're potentially not seeing the highest teacher shortage that we could face.
Yes.
Completely agree.
Yes.
Okay.
And part of that, like I use that example, Catherine last year went to Iowa State, and was it Iowa State?
Iowa State, 92
And-
grads, there were 88 grads and, or something like this, and 92 vendors there, like schools
But-
trying to get those 88.
The year prior, there were
There
300,
were significantly more.
so there was 2/3 less
Right.
than even just graduating the College of Teaching.
Right,
In anything, so let alone art, that's a hard to find.
Right.
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
So I would think that would be
That is
a
extremely
huge one.
important,
I've heard that other
yes.
districts are like starting retainment
Mhm.
policies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, just so I know, what are you asking? You appointed the committee, just want to know what's our,
Just the 3 to 5 priorities
Yeah,
that
3 to
we
5,
want.
okay.
and then just communicate that to you, and then you can
Yeah, and then we
communicate
just
that
have to send it to IASB.
Yes,
Mhm.
because they've been sending us a letter every week saying, what is your list of priorities?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
And it takes some knowledge of each one of these in the grand scheme of things, which mine is a little bit small. Because I've only been here for 8 months. And I know there's a lot to each one.
Mhm.
They're all so
Yes.
hugely important. To come up with 3 or 5 top ones is tough, but,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, yeah, I would say special ed and then or the early literacy or the preschool or
And then the teacher recruitment.
that would need to stay.
Well, I would
yeah.
assume that's
Oh, yeah.
statewide going to be we might not even have to back that one, there
I
would
think
be
the
enough.
other four,
And licensure, and there are things like they've got in here, expansion of Teach Iowa Scholar Troops to Teachers, Teacher Intern Program, which these are all really good things, but like, for example, the Troops to Teachers, we have someone who we've been trying to get him into that program, and he's a para for us right now, and he's great, and we cannot get anybody to, I mean, just so if there's attention even brought to that, that would be great, you know.
Oh, I would like to ask the administration, what is the top 3 threats of the school district in the next 3 years?
Do you want to
Yeah.
say
Well,
anything?
you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is making sure that you have qualified staff. I mean, that's and then being able to retain them, you know, so that one's huge.
and who would have thought that 10 years ago?
So school funding becomes really
Yep.
up there because they'll be able to
For them
pay that.
or
Yeah.
offer.
What do you think is attributed to that? Is it factors that can be changed in an educational setting? Is it just like why are we seeing that shortage?
I think part of it is why why are kids not going into education?
Yeah, why do we not want kids, why do kids post-secondary education not want to go into education?
I don't feel they feel that educators are respected in the media and kind of out there. I don't know. I think that's part of it. I mean, my own son's student teaching right now. He's going to be a teacher. But what the other anomaly in all of this is it's not even getting kids to go into teaching. It's kids, I call them kids, that have maybe taught 5 to 10 years and they're getting completely out
Don't wanna
of
be
teaching. So, and I think it's a lot of factors, whether it's the stress of feeling supported or just the profession in general being respected. I'm sure that some factors are the salaries, the stress level, and there's good things about teaching too. You know, there's lots of good things about teaching, but I feel like sometimes education's taken a little bit of a beating lately in the press.
I can tell you that last year, preschool, mental health, SSA, and school funding policy were our priorities.
And preschool would be to try to get statewide voluntary preschool, which means that all kids could go to preschool for free, whether you qualify or don't qualify. Which we have a really good preschool program here, and we're lucky for that, but that would give us additional funding to help provide more sections of preschool if needed.
Well, I put that one on the list then.
And that's been on the list. They've tried to get statewide voluntary preschool for several years. It's just additional funding, so they would have to come up with that.
How about, how big a deal is the achievement gap from the lack of being in school from that time 2 years ago or?
Oh, yeah, I saw that one on there too.
I mean, it,
Are we even
I don't
seeing
think
worse
we
than
are,
that?
are we? Do you see that in our district? Because we,
Our
lots of
scores,
ground,
we do.
uh,
I think it's, Jeff, do you want to speak to that at the elementary level, or?
You mean you talking about the COVID gap?
yes.
Yeah. When we were at home instruction for that period of time, it seems like there was.
You know, I
there's
think
an achievement.
we're better off than nationally, because I've been reading some nationally, and you know, it took a big committee for them to make the decision that there may have been some mistakes made with keeping kids at home too long, which they didn't have to do a big study. They could have talked to me. But,
Most all of these. they could-
yeah. Yeah, there's a gap. Absolutely. You know, and to me, the biggest gap is the gap between the kids who were going to be higher anyway, and the kids, they just fall, the kids that were behind fell farther behind. So the gap that was already there that may have been closer got much larger.
I would say we are seeing, and there is an academic gap, but we're also seeing a behavior gap and a social, just
I
social
expect that at
skills.
delegate assembly, we'll see some really good discussion about that. I think a lot of schools will be talking about that. I think.
We're just seeing different types of behaviors that we might not have seen at that young of an age, or more kids that have those. We might have seen those behaviors, but it's 15% of the kids instead of 10%, so.
I think you said it well in your initial comment. I think a lot of it has to do, I suspect, with respect. The teachers want to be respected. And are the kids respectable? And that's painful almost to talk about, but it doesn't hurt to know what the threat is and maybe be able to do something about it. What do you think, Steve?
I think there's lots of things. I think money plays into it too, because we push trade programs and kids realize they don't have to go to 4 years to school to make better money than teachers do. But I'm like Jenny, to me the more concerning group is the kids that have been teaching for 5 to 10 years. They're the ones that are going to be dropping by the wayside. is my gut anyway. Teaching has always been cyclic, it always goes up and down a little bit, so I think once it's a shortage and they're getting recruitment bonuses, retentions, I think you'll see that go up a little bit. But it's your small rural districts are the ones that are really gonna be hurt, that can't afford to pay the teachers more, can't afford to give them the retention bonuses, that are really gonna get hurt.
Legislatively, the push will be to provide funds, more funding to be able to find ways to counteract that achievement gap. So, I mean, that'd be a good thing. It'll be interesting to see how it comes out of the
I
priorities.
do think something else that would help that is just the licensure piece, and it not being, unless you graduate from an Iowa institution, it's extremely difficult to get your teaching license right away. If I'm speaking from experience from graduating from Nebraska, and it took me 5 years to get my license in Iowa.
Wow.
So, and and by that time I had moved from being a special ed teacher to a counselor. So, and I'd already had my master's,
Sure.
but it took me 5 years to get the initial license. So that is another thing that it's just difficult, and we need to open, and they've been opening that up a little bit, but we have to be more welcoming to kids from other places. And even looking at paying student teachers, my son's getting paid to student teach right now in Omaha Public Schools. So usually you have to pay to student teach, and he's getting paid for student teaching. I know down in Missouri, the whole state is paying for student teachers, so they're keeping all those teachers down there, whereas at one point, like, the ones that are on the border of Iowa with the smaller rural schools were able to get a lot of kids from the Missouri border, but now they've all stayed down there because they're getting paid to student teach. So then you don't get even the first blush at trying to recruit them. So I think statewide, we're gonna have to think about something that way, because every district isn't gonna be able to fund that. I mean, you just have to, some can and some can't.
Well, I have 3 girls that are teachers, and I'll tell you what, our family gatherings, I can tell you lots of reasons why people aren't going into teaching. It's, yeah,
So what are they?
behavior, respect, support,
And I think it's all the way around.
pressure, the
too.
stress.
Yeah.
But they love it too,
Yeah,
but
they're-
it's challenging.
Mhm.
There's lots of challenges.
Very good.
So did we come up with the top ones, or do you want Al and I to?
I think it would make sense to have Joni and Al and Joe kind of hash it over for a little bit longer. And
Look at last year's and then see if we,
November 1st,
those
we'll have
risen to the place we need to be.
Would you send those to us? Al and I, the one, and Joe maybe with the ones from last year.
The 3, and we can have 3 to 5 that they're asking for, right? Yeah.
Okay, any other comments as far as the discussion items? I thought I'd make a question. Some of the things that we're doing on the 1st in this next month or two, since we have a attorney and this bond company, I take it most of these is kind of a check the box type of deal. I mean, they're professionals, they should tell us what to do, it's just mostly a matter of doing it. We don't have to, I mean, when we get the architect involved, we'll have to make a lot of decisions on buildings and stuff.
When you're
This
looking
is
at
more-
number 2 and number 3 on the action items,
Mhm.
these are check the box things. You have to engage the lawyers, you have to engage the financial people in order to move forward with the process. It's literally their check the box type things.
I know, because I was going through them today, I'm like.
Right. Glad we got that.
Engagement letter.
I was hoping so.
Having had to do engagement letters in my prior profession, engagement letters is basically you're giving them the ability to go forward with the process. That's what it is.
Good to know. Okay, so we've had our D, discussion items. Next is E, the action items. And the first on this is the personnel report, which I'll turn it back over to Barnett, which will give it to Catherine.
Catherine.
Give the floor to Catherine.
No, I don't know that there's anything outstanding in here that I need to discuss. We just had a few resignations. They're coming up at the end of the month here. Some new hires, some classified coaching sponsor vacancies, and then continue for the two new, the two teachers that we're looking for. We did have two terminations as well, but nothing that we need to discuss further unless anyone has any questions for me.
Questions for Catherine?
He bus driver, but obviously we have enough to get all the kiddos here and there.
Yeah, I think Jared drives sometimes, and but yeah.
Those bus drivers are saints.
And Catherine cooks sometimes, or at least
Yeah.
delivers the food, so.
Kitchen duty.
Yeah.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve the personnel report?
So moved.
So moved by Al, and seconded by
Second.
Johnny. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Okay, second, we have the approval of the letter for the bond disclosure counsel services with Allers Law Firm.
Brian, do you want to, I
Essentially-
have it up there, so
Yeah,
just.
essentially what this is it's just giving them the permission to go ahead and draft the documents that we need to move forward with the bond issues, essentially.
So throughout this process, we're gonna have three partners, really, Allers and Cooney. Beth Grove is our lawyer on that end. Piper Sandler, which Travis is our guy, that end, and he does all the financial pieces. And then De Novo, which will work with the construction manager there and the architect.
A lot of the stuff on the legal side will be done before things start, because they're just getting us through getting the bonds bid on, the bonds issue, the hearings and stuff like that. So a lot of their stuff is up front. The part with jumping into the part number 3, before we get to number 3, a lot of that's going to be, that'll be somewhat ongoing, because it'll, once we come up with the final, how we're going to, at what point we're going to sell the bonds, there'll be some work they'll have to do throughout. A lot of theirs, again, is going to be up front, but there'll be some continuing as we go through.
And one question, as far as what do you have any kind of an estimate about what the cost will be for the Allers, all in all?
Honestly,
Did I see 15, 20,000 or something, was there estimate? Or 25,
Some of
30?
them are on a percent too, I saw.
I honestly, on this, I'd have to get back to you.
Okay.
You're probably in the range. I'd hate to commit to say that it's
Sure.
exactly it.
Yeah, I just like to know the numbers sometime along the line. It's always nice to know.
We can ask them.
Okay.
And that comes out of,
It's all part of the process. All these costs are included in with the whole project.
Pot.
Mhm.
Very good.
It's all enveloped under the basis.
Any further questions as far as the services with Allers? Concerns or questions? He's shaking his head, so I guess we can we get a motion to approve the letter for the disclosure counsel services with Allers Law Firm?
There you go.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Al's made the motion, and could we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second by Monty. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. Okay, third, we have the approval of bond finance agreements with Piper Sandler, and I'll read these. The engagement letter is A, B is the municipal advisor contract, and D is the dissemination agent agreement. Or it's also called the continuing disclosure obligation.
They did suggest that these all be approved
We have to
separately.
approve them.
Okay,
separately.
okay. So the first one is the engagement letter then. questions on that or comments? Okay, would someone like to make the motion to approve the Piper Sandler engagement letter?
So moved.
So moved by Jade and seconded
Second it.
by Joni. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The next item then is 3B, which is the approval of the municipal advisor contract with Piper Sandler. How about discussions on that? Okay, could I have a motion to approve the Piper Sandler municipal advisor contract?
So moved.
So moved by Jade and seconded
Second.
by Monty. Okay, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. Lastly, here for Piper Sandler, we have the dissemination agent agreement. And I think on the form itself, it calls it this continuing disclosure obligation.
That's because it's a municipal obligation, so we have to continually disclose the information to the
I
securities.
see. Uh-huh. And is this the one that came with the price tag? I think it said some kind of a percentage. I think it was .005. I was thinking that came to about 100 or 120,000.
This one is an annual fee of $1,500 per
Okay.
security class of bonds outstanding.
Okay, it must have been one of the other ones.
Must be one of the other ones.
Yeah. And so does that
The
sound right?
engagement letter is them telling us that, okay, yes, move forward.
Yeah.
The dissemination agreement is something that, we do that every year.
Okay.
No, this year, next year,
Okay.
every year. The municipal advisor contract, which is what they're doing, is they're going out and promoting the bonds and making the contacts. That's gonna be where
The work is, huh?
Mhm.
Okay. If you could get back to us with that number, it looks like, I guess it depends on the amount of the bonds, maybe some ranges or something.
Jim, that's all, it's embedded in there. I can probably get something from Travis.
Mhm.
It's all embedded into the
Yeah.
total project, but I
Yeah,
can
it's just a
probably-
couple numbers multiplied.
Yeah.
So, and appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions about this dissemination agent agreement? Could I have a motion to approve the Piper Sandler dissemination agent agreement?
So moved.
So moved by Monty, seconded.
Second.
Al's got this one. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. Okay, we're up to 4. This is called the resolution fixing the date for a hearing on the proposal issuance of approximately $16 million for school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue and refunding bonds.
Say it again, please.
Thank you very much. I might need a glass of water.
This is the November 1st.
This is the November 1st. Brian, do you want?
Yeah, I mean, I'll real quickly, one of the things that you see 16 million there, and the first thing is, well, we, you know, through all the meetings, that's much more than what's talked about there. One of the things as part of the financing plan they're doing is we have existing debt on the old primary school that are sitting out there, and what they're doing is they're bringing it all under one umbrella. It makes the financing plan easier, so that's part of the reason. There also is there's also probably a little bit extra built in there. Should we have additional funds, which we could possibly, because our debt load this year and next year is quite a bit less than it normally would have been. So there's a possibility we could have, I'm going to use the word additional funds that give us the ability to buy down, if so need. This gives us the ability. I don't want to use the word fluff, but what it does is it gives us that ability rather than to go out and go through this process again.
Isn't that almost paid?
It doesn't raise the overall project cost. What it does, it gives us the ability to be a little bit more flexible on the mix of the GO bond versus the revenue bond.
What'd you ask, Jane?
I was thinking that was almost paid off at the intermediate.
The GO bond, actually, we'll probably pay it off in the next couple of months. That's the there's
The
350.
general obligation, yeah.
The GO bond, there's two bonds over there. There's a
Okay.
revenue bond and a GO bond.
Okay,
Now, it's all being paid with the penny at present, okay?
okay,
It's all being paid with the penny. But the general obligation portion of the bond will probably, we have a payment that comes due, I think, the 1st of December. This actually principal, this $315,000 we own, that is realistically not due till next May. There's no sense in waiting, we can save the interest between now and then. So the GO bond will go away. The bond that will be left over there is a revenue bond, which, again, that's part of what we would be adding into here in the total financing plan.
Does this tie in with the vote last month? Was there a number?
A revenue purpose statement?
Yeah, was there a number on that coincides with this or not?
As I just said a little bit ago, what you'll have there is what was stated in the, when we, the revenue purpose statement doesn't have a
Didn't have a
dollar
number.
attached
It did
to it.
not have a number.
That
But
just
the
gives
bond
us the
issue did.
ability to spend the penny as we,
I see.
as the board, in the best interest of the board.
Mhm.
The general obligation bond got voted on.
Oh, okay.
The revenue bond is something that's done through this process. And what we're doing is we're giving us the ability to where we can make the best overall financing plan. Does that
Yeah, that helps.
make more sense to you?
Yeah, in the vote, there was really no number on that. It's just
Not on the second,
on the second
no.
page, on the back
It was
page.
just allowing us to, local control, basically.
well, we would
Yeah.
have had to voted on that every 10 years.
We vote on it anyway, and if it wouldn't have
Yeah.
passed, we would have still had to vote on that
Right.
again in order to,
Right.
yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
every
the
10?
RPS
Yeah,
gets
every
voted
10
on
years.
every 10 years
Okay.
anyway.
Yep.
And the board has the ability to make decisions on that.
That's the
Yes.
reason you
Now,
have the, that's
that's
the reason
why
you're
we-
having the hearing.
That's why we were having a hearing, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The board makes a decision that you have. Yes, you're right. The board makes a decision that that's the reason that you have the hearing.
Okay, since the voters have given the board the.
Yeah.
We're right to do that, yep.
Okay, I'm a little slow, so.
No,
I-
those
the same question.
were the best
Jim, this
questions
is-
all this meeting.
This is very complicated stuff, and it's my first one too,
Yeah.
so.
Oh,
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, there's,
very good. Any other discussion? Okay, can I have a motion to approve this resolution that I already read?
So moved.
So moved by Jade.
Great. And that fixes the November 1 date, this one.
Is the wrong one?
No, is this the one that's fixing the
Yes.
November 1 date? Is that part of the motion?
Yes.
We have it on
Does it-
November
Yes.
1st.
Yeah.
Yes, but does it
Yes.
say somewhere October 31st?
No, no, I don't think so.
Oh,
It
okay,
does
I'm
say-
sorry,
it
I
does
just wanted to
say-
make sure we have the
I think
right,
it's- it looked like, yeah.
It does say 5/15.
Yeah.
right, is that when you wanna have it, at 5:15?
works for me.
It's consistent.
Okay,
Yeah, for me
Okay.
too.
alright.
So moved
So
again?
you didn't get a second?
So
Okay,
Albertson
yeah.
moved, yep, and we need a second.
Second.
Second by Joni. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Next is the item E5, early retirement incentive.
Okay. So the finance committee met, which was these three, Jim, Al, and Monty, and discussed, Brian each year looks at the management fund and decides kind of how much money we have towards, to put towards the retirement incentive. This year we have up to eight people could retire. Last year we had up to 5, and 4 took us up on it, and then 1 teacher came in a little bit late. The reasons that we want to do this early is, we already just talked about our teacher shortages. There have been probably at least 5 teachers who have already told us that they are planning on retiring. So the earlier we can get that out, the better, that we can start recruiting for those. Because otherwise, you can't, there's a deadline, or there's a timeline for putting out contracts. So you can't put out contracts until March, is it March 15th? And then they get
21 days.
21 days in order to sign those. So from March 15th all the way into April, you're waiting, because you could have people say they're gonna retire or not. And then that just puts you, like, this gives us 6 months to start really recruiting and trying to find teachers. And we may not have 8. Our theory behind it, because 8 does sound like a lot, is they're going to retire anyway, whether they get the incentive or not. This just gives us 6 months faster to get some recruiting done.
There's 3 things basically financially, and I mean, Jim Allen, Monty have already heard this, but, and you've probably heard this before any time, but there's 3 things you look at. There's the original cost of the early retirement incentive, which that's the $15,000 that they get, the incentive they get. The second thing is they do get an insurance incentive till the time they turn 65. As I told these guys last week when we had the finance committee meeting, I said, really, that runs in a cycle, because we have some that'll drop off every year, we have some come in every year, so that cost really doesn't fluctuate from year to year for the district. Yeah, it'll ebb and flow a little bit, but we're talking a few thousand at the most. The third thing you look at it from a financial perspective, not the 2 costs, is I'm going to use the word, is a potential savings, because a lot of times what you're going to have happen is somebody that is here on the salary schedule is going to retire, and although it doesn't always happen that way, a lot of times what's going to happen is in the general fund, you're going to have your replacement teacher is going to cost you less. We've done, I might want to say, exhaustive spreadsheets of this over the years showing the difference, and typically, very rarely, I can think of in 10 years, 1 year where we had kind of broke even. Most years you're saving the general fund considerable dollars.
I'm concerned for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're just talking about teacher shortages. So to me, it seems counterproductive to incentivize retiring if we don't know that we'll fill those. But my question would be too, we can't advertise for those? If we know they're retiring anyways, I understand they have until 21 days after their contract to sign those. But if we know they're potentially retiring anyways, we can't advertise.
We can advertise for sure, but we can't offer a contract to a teacher until they have told us they're not gonna sign their contract.
Sure.
So it still puts you into May, because if I'm a teacher and I graduate in December, let's say, and I'm out looking for a job right now, we could pick that teacher up right away and say, we'll give you a contract next year, and we could even see if they'll come sub for us on a regular basis or something. But if they're also gonna get, I'm just gonna be totally honest with you, like my son hasn't even graduated yet and isn't even sure he can graduate, but he also plays baseball, so he could stay another year, and he's trying to decide what he's gonna do. And he's been offered 3 jobs already, and he hasn't even, and they're in special education, which he's not even done with that endorsement. So they're gonna, I'm leading right into your point, where it's gonna be super hard to find teachers. I agree with you. But I also think if we absolutely can advertise for those jobs, we just can't offer them a contract, or if we do, we're taking a risk, because what if they decide right at the end that they're not going to? Then we've got 2, which is, I do think.
There's going to be early competition this year, because 2 or 3 schools have already put these out there. So the earlier you get going with this, the better off you're going to be.
I don't know. To me, it seems.
It's counterintuitive, but
It
it's not
seems
real.
very interesting that we cannot guarantee, even if we potentially in an unprecedented and unknown time are offering 8 people, $15,000, that we might not fill half of 8.
Well, what if they retire, what if they all retire, then we still don't fill them, and then
Well,
we
right,
don't
but
have
then the-
6 months less of trying to find anybody,
Well,
that's,
then we didn't give them $15,000 either. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I love teachers. I love the thought of them feeling, you know, like they did a great job. I love that. I just am having a hard time with this concept. Because I feel like when I talk to some teachers now, morale already feels a little low. I'm not in the buildings every day. Maybe it's not. But I feel like the ones that I talk to are like, I don't know how we're gonna get through this. And then, how are they gonna get through this if we can't fill even if half of those 8? So it's not disagreement that I disagree to your point, I just am like,
Worried.
it is a little, yes, it's hard for me to be like, not only are we not gonna offer 5, we're gonna offer 8.
Well, we're worried about it too, we don't know, I mean, I also worry that morale won't be good if we don't offer an incentive, because if we don't offer the incentive, then,
They'll stay for another year, maybe.
but they might not be real happy about it, that's the other thing, you know, if they don't get the incentive and we only offered it to 3,
So-
and we had 5 that wanted to retire, they might stay for another year and not be effective, or they might just say we're gonna retire anyway, but we're not gonna tell you until May.
So how
They-
long, though, have we offered the incentive for? I recall hearing maybe at one of the board meetings, other years, we haven't offered it because we haven't had the
It's
money
been
for
offered
it.
in some form, I think, just about every year since
I
I've
see.
been here.
I don't remember any years where we didn't.
Yeah, I know.
And
And it's
it's
less.
been, it's been kind of
Education.
changed and
Do other districts do the same
Oh,
thing?
they
Yes.
do it
Oh, yeah.
a
It's
lot.
just a pretty
Yeah.
common thing in the education world, it's unique.
I will tell you, I'm definitely not naming names, but I know of districts that have offered, like, they wanted to tailor it for a certain department, shall I say,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been a lot more lucrative than what we're offering.
I mean, I get the premise behind it. I just think right now it seems an interesting time when they're putting retention policies in place that we're upping the amount of people to retire. Because maybe somebody's on the fence and they are like, oh, I'll wait.
And that, I think the retention policies that they're putting in aren't for the people that have
No,
1 or
I'm
2
sure they're
years. They're
for-
for that 5 or 10 year group that Steve and I were talking about, that we're worried about, they don't wanna stay, so how can we help retain them for a longer period of time?
You were agreeing with a lot, I just wondered what you see, or what your,
I think, you know, if you read research articles, if you don't offer that early retirement, you get a lot of teachers that hang on that probably aren't very good teachers, they don't do as good a job, they're not as engaged in professional development and things like that. So I think I'm like Brian, I've been around enough schools when I was in the AEA last year that they offer a lot more money to their teachers and insurance benefits than what you are here.
This is a very conservative one.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with any of those things. I disagree with the fact that we're at an unprecedented amount of time, or point in time, education-wise. There might not be the graduates to come, whether we're offering a lot of money or not. So if there's no people to choose from, there's no people to choose from. What will we tell people next year? Like, yes, we offered early incentives, say we get all 8, but we can fill 4. But what do we do with those other 4 positions? We still have certified openings this year. And I know those are difficult ones to fill. There are, SPED and art, STEM.
We just have to treat those individually and look at them just like we did this year, but we had an unfortunate situation where we did have a contract signed for an elementary teacher, and then she backed out in June, and she was from out of state, so it didn't really, there were no ramifications for her because she didn't have a license in Iowa, so if you do that when you're in Iowa and you have a license, they can take your license, or they can do things, but it didn't matter to her because she was coming from Texas, so in June, we were stuck without a teacher, so,
What do you think is the difference though? Because we're still stuck without that position's still open.
we couldn't, yeah.
But what is the difference?
The difference is everybody had already signed a contract, because they're signing contracts way, way earlier. So that incentive piece is, you know, do you agree to sign a contract for 2 years? Or do you agree to sign a contract for 3 years if you'll do this? Or these hard to fill positions like art, or we'll pay you X amount. And that,
So in her contract, it would have said something that she would have had to have stayed.
no, what I'm saying is she backed out of her contract, but she was from Texas, so it didn't matter. Whereas if she were coming from another Iowa institution or would have a license, we would have been able to keep her. Do you see what I mean?
But we've advertised for that since then and still not filled.
Well, part of that is because teachers sign their contracts between
So they would
that
have
March
a job
and,
already.
mhm, that's what I mean, yeah,
Gotcha.
sorry, I didn't explain that very
No,
well.
no,
but
no,
yeah,
no, I'm just,
they've already got a job. And we did try to find retired teachers maybe that would wanna come back, or,
did they?
no, well, a lot of them did, and like we tried 2 or 3 special ed ones from other districts around us, and so they went somewhere else. We were too late.
Joni, what's your thoughts on it? You've been around here a while.
My thoughts are, if a teacher in their mind is ready to retire, I mean, I know $15,000 is $15,000, I'm not belittling that, but if in their mind they're ready to be done and retired, I don't know if the $15,000 is going to motivate them not to retire.
Do they get the insurance premiums no matter if they do the early incentive retirement or not?
They do,
If a teacher retires from here and
Yes.
doesn't do the early retirement,
Yes.
they can stay on our insurance, but they don't get the
yeah,
incentive
the incentive,
The lump sum
Yeah.
or the,
either.
okay.
yeah, the
When you
incentive.
say incentive, you're saying in the so much a
The
month
$150 a
payment.
month.
It's 125
$125.
actually.
125.
Excuse me, 25.
Yeah.
Okay,
So they don't get that.
you get the
if
insurance
they-
paid for, is what you're
Right.
saying.
But they can stay on until
So
they're
there's 2 parts of the incentive, the
Yeah.
15,000 plus the 125 per month
Until
until you're
65.
65.
I saw that, I just didn't know if they get something though, they can stay on our insurance, even if they don't get an early
They have to
incentive.
They have to pay
But
for
they're
it.
paying it.
Mhm.
But getting back to your question, I mean, I think if a teacher's done, I mean, if his or her heart's not into it and they want to be done, then I don't know if not giving that is going to keep them here, or if in fact I don't want to say don't want them, but what word am I looking for? I know their heart's got to be in it, I guess.
I think we know what you're saying.
I guess I look at it as, this is maybe an opportunity for us to be a little more aggressive in grabbing those newer kids just coming out of school and getting that contract signed. I completely understand your
No,
question.
I-
It makes a lot of sense.
It does.
But that's how I look at it, is trying to be aggressive and getting these new teachers locked in.
I don't know if it's I'm out of place by talking here, but I've heard of districts changing their thought process to yours, where they are offering incentives for teachers to tell you by a certain date that they are leaving the district. It's not a retirement thing, it's if you are gonna leave, and you know you're gonna leave this year, we'll pay you X amount of dollars to let us know by December 1st. So it's not an incentive to retire, it's an incentive to tell us you're
Early.
leaving.
Mhm.
It might be the exact same thing, but it's framed differently.
Yeah.
It's kind of sort of the same thing.
It's
But it's
not
just-
as much, so like maybe $1,500 or something, but if you tell us, we'll
Yeah.
give you $1,500 if you tell us by December 1st,
To
you
me,
don't.
it's not the money. It's not really the money. It's more the thought process behind it and the fact that we added more numbers to it. To me, I'm like, so we want 8 people to retire?
What we were saying is, looking at the management fund, we financially could give the incentive to 8 people, and I think that's how it's always been looked at in the past. Not that it has to stay that way, but
Only 1 year since I've been doing this have we ever hit the max. we had 1 year where we had an abnormally large amount of people that were eligible.
Well, my
5,
fear
6,
is,
7
Brian, this will
years
be the year we hit the max and then don't get teachers here.
But I feel like if they're within that range and they can retire within the next year, 2 or 3, they're gonna do that in the next year, 2 or 3, and we're still gonna have that opening. Do you see what I mean? Like,
I do, and that's where part of my point
you're
is
saying
too,
spread
though.
it out.
If we know they're gonna leave, the odds of them choosing to stay after we're trying to recruit other people is smaller, maybe. I understand the contract thing, like I understand now that you said that, we could have had that, we could have advertised that 6 months earlier, maybe, because every other person had already signed their contract. I do understand that, but
And actually, this $15,000 and the $125 per month is lower than last year, right? And it's considerably
no,
lower
it's
than
the
what we used to offer.
same as last
Same as
year,
last
but
Same as
you
last
guys
year.
lowered it before I got here. Like it
Was it the $125 a month last year? I thought it used to be kind of.
First of all, the 15,000 used to be 20,000.
Yeah,
Right.
that you-
Yeah.
Okay, the $1,500 a month, at one time, it was a twofold
Yeah.
thing where it
That's
was
a year.
so much, or, sorry,
Yeah.
thank you for correcting me there. The $1,500 a year insurance benefit at one time, it was higher than that actually,
Yeah.
and that got scaled back, so it's less than it's been from that standpoint. I'd be remiss if I didn't stress the fact that in a world of declining enrollment, one of the places you still want to balance your general fund out. And the one thing it does give you the opportunity to do is maybe not even through absorbing positions, but you're not always going to hire at a less cost in the general fund, but history would tell you more often than not that's what happens. And again, we've done exhaustive spreadsheets on this, and this in a world of declining enrollment, this does give you an opportunity to tighten your belt a little bit.
Or to consolidate some positions.
Yes.
which if that's what we wanna do, we would say that, right?
It depends on who, yes, absolutely, but it
That's not
depends
what
on
we're
who's
doing.
gonna retire. We're not doing that. What we will do is see who's interested and who says we're gonna do it.
If you can
and it-
strategically absorb a
Yeah,
position, the
we might
answer
be
is
able to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I
Yeah.
understand that, but I would think we would say that then, that's why we're offering 8, is because we're going to change whatever, 5th grade from 4 pods or 5 pods to 4 pods or whatever. So we don't have, you would tell me, Jade, we don't have to fill all those positions.
no, that is not the intent right now,
Right.
by any means. And I would say elementary's probably a priority right now because we're down anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
and that's where my brain's trying to wrap around.
no, it's not. That is not what, but
And we have to review this every year, so this isn't something that we can commit some future board to. We're just looking at kind of where things are this year.
When does when do we need to know for?
we need to do it now.
November
We need to
11th.
decide now because they have to have time to do the application, and then they get 7 days to say, I still want to do this. Like, even if they turn in the application, they can rescind it after 7 days. And then we have to bring their names back to you in November, and then you guys approve them. And then we can start looking for jobs right after that.
Al, correct me if I'm wrong, historically in the past, there's been years that this process wasn't started till January and February.
Oh, we moved it.
I think
Yeah,
the
we did
reason
move
it
it up
got
a
moved
few
up
years
is
ago.
in
Yeah.
fact
For that reason.
specifically your concern.
Yeah. Yeah,
And it's
so
a first come, first serve
it
basis,
is
right?
for the 8th.
But yeah, the sooner than
So they
The
can really
sooner you
request
do
it
it, the
this
you're
week.
more successful you're
October
gonna be
20th or
at.
something, through November 11th, November 11th, so update the first come, first served. And once 8 people would apply, it would be closed, I guess. Yeah.
And then we would, I mean, last year, I don't know if you recall, that in the spring, we had a teacher come back and.
Yeah.
Well, any other discussion? Some good discussion. And we aren't always gonna have everybody vote the same, so that's normal and necessary. Huh? Would anyone like to make unless there's any other discussion, we'll look for a motion to approve the early retirement incentive program.
So moved.
So moved by Monty and seconded
Second.
by Al. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No,
Thank you all. We'll move on to item number E6, the agreement for student enrollment in Rising Hope Academy Therapeutic Classroom Riverside Community School District. And I might warn you that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these, and they're all the same, so I'll just repeat the school on the other ones. So this is for the Riverside one.
This is for the new therapeutic program that we have, so we have students from each of these districts, Riverside, Tri-Center, Manning, and Underwood. And so we have to just go into an agreement, even though it's a Green Hills AEA program, it's based here, so we go into an agreement with that district, and we just have to have, it's just the legalese of all of that. So each student that begins there will have one of these, so since this is the first year, we have these 4, but we might, in a couple months, if they have a new student, we'll just have a new one of these, so.
And we had, last board meeting, we had some, so what?
Last board meeting was
the number?
the MOUs, the memorandums of understanding with different, like with Children's Square, so then that means we sign a consortium with them that says anytime we want to send a kid there, we can send one there. So this one's a little bit, and then that one, yes, it was the therapeutic classroom, but that was our agreement with the AEA
Okay,
to
So
house
these
the
are the-
program. These are the actual kids that are
Okay.
in the classrooms
So-
and working with it, so that we can charge their district and the money kind of flows through us.
so right now, so this makes me have 4 total then?
Mhm.
Okay,
And they
these
can
are the
have
first
up to
4.
6,
Okay.
yes. And we'll get, one of them will be ours, so we just want to make sure we have the right fit for it.
Okay. That's great.
Can I have a motion to approve the agreement? That's-
we do one at a time, is that what you're saying?
Yes, one at a time. This
All
is
right.
the Riverside.
I motion to approve the agreement for student enrollment in Rising Hope Academy Therapeutic Classroom, Riverside Community School District.
Oh, okay. And a second?
Second.
Second by Joni. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. Number 7, action item E7 is the same type of an agreement, this time with Tri-Center Community School District.
So moved.
So moved by Jade and seconded
Second.
by Al. All those in favor, aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Action item E8 is the agreement for student enrollment at the IKM Manning Community School District.
So moved.
So moved, any discussion? And then so moved by Jade. All those in favor, aye.
Very good
second. I'll second.
We got Monty, seconded that one. And number 9 is the agreement for
Oh, now we have
student.
to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Keep me on track, Jade. Okay.
Sorry.
No.
I took up too much time the last one, so I'll help us get through this. Yeah.
Okay, number 9, agreement for student enrollment at Underwood Community School District. Any discussion? And could we have a motion for that?
You betcha, so moved.
Again, so moved by Jade and seconded this time by
I'll second.
Monty. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, now we get to say something new. Number 10 is the policy review schedule, second reading.
I don't know.
I believe we
Yes,
said that we have Larson, Hertzberg, and Reichel on the second reading. I know I talked to Joe a little bit. He didn't have any great concern on the second reading, and I didn't see anything in there. Let me just see something. I noticed it made a reference to the school calendar, and I was just wondering if that, we did a school calendar, or is this just something more general in here on the second
Oh,
reading?
no, it's just the policy that says the board will approve.
Okay. Okay, that was my only thing that I saw in there. Any other discussion on this item? Number 10? Okay, can we have a motion to approve the policy review schedule second reading?
So moved.
So moved by Joni and seconded
Second.
by Al. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. Okay, action item E11, policy review schedule first reading. And we have the same people here on this one. Any discussion on this?
Just where the very bottom of it, the part went,
Excuse me?
at the very end, the
last-
stuff that is the accounting stuff that Brian,
Actually, I took that off, Johnny,
Yeah.
because Brian didn't have an opportunity to look at it.
okay.
So we'll put it on next month.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think that
Fix
was-
That's one.
Yes. Good.
Yes. He was out of the office.
Okay.
Just
Read it
office, and I
after it
didn't
was
really have a
on.
good chance to look at it.
Oh,
think
'cause
that-
I-
I think there's nothing much different.
My comment was, ask Brian instead
Yes.
of my. It was about in assets,
So-
in
Capital.
cap,
Mobilization realm.
What are we actually approving then with our approval of the first reading?
everything up to the very last section.
We're here?
Because I don't know what policy it was started at.
It started at 409.06,
Okay.
license, employee, jury, duty, leave. That
Oh,
was the
that's
start
right.
of it.
And then it goes, yeah.
When-
The very last one was the complicated one, but,
Yeah, we're
That-
gonna review that next month.
Okay.
It's not on our schedule, it was just one that IASB said we should take a look
the
at.
gap.
And so we didn't have
Is
enough.
that the one in green, Catherine?
Let me see.
But the,
Yeah, the one in green is the ISBB rewrite of 605.
Yeah. Yep, that's not it. That's IASB, it's rewrite.
Mhm.
That's totally not the capital one we were talking about. I took that off. So IASB has recommended that we do some rewrites on a couple of these and it's in green to show that it's a complete rewrite. They want us to go away with the old and have this new one in.
so it really can't
Was the
make
new
any
one there, or the
changes.
old one there for us to look at then?
It was for the committee.
And
The committee is recommending that we do that.
Yeah,
And most of it was the same.
It is.
Generally, it's pretty
Okay,
much
so
the
you looked
same.
at the old one?
Right.
yeah.
Very small changes.
Gotcha.
And so if they recommend it, there's really no
Yes.
reason for
That
us
means the
to
lawyer has looked at it.
change it or alter it.
So we're gonna pull that one piece out of the first reading and do that as the first reading next meeting.
Yes, right?
It's the
For capital,
802.04.
Yeah, it's the
But this
capital.
rewrite will be put into the 605.05, right?
Or is
Apply for E1.
for the
What's that?
second reading?
Yes.
It'll be a first reading next time.
I see.
That'll be a second reading
It'll be a
next time.
second reading, okay.
You're talking two different things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yours is gonna be a
Capital
first
policy.
reading.
Right,
The
yeah.
capital. This one's gonna be a second, this one that's already on
Right,
here.
I
is
just
second.
wanted-
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, the one we're not talking about is the capitalized assets
Yeah.
and,
yeah.
Yeah.
This one, if anybody wants to look at it, it has to do with providing parents access to the school material. So it's a very important
So
subject to our constituents.
I would be curious to see what it said before.
Sure, I can send it to you.
Yeah, and I
But
think,
We
we
still
have a second reading.
Yeah, so you
So we
can,
can
yep,
look at it, okay.
yep, and I believe, you probably are on the policy for next time.
If you weren't this time.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't this time, no.
Yeah.
yeah, I think the government.
And I'll send it out, I'm sorry, Jim,
No, I-
I'll send it out right away, like by
Well,
the
it's
end
in
of the
our-
week, so you guys can
It's
have
in our
it.
current policy, right, so it would be on the website.
Yes.
I
But I've
didn't
got
look
it
it
in
up,
a
no,
nice
knowing there was
document for you.
changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
And it's worth looking. I think the governor has had some advocacy, I guess. She's wanted the people, the parents to be able to see these things. And I think probably one of the biggest questions of our citizens, I think, is this issue. So it's a good one to read and know that they want people to know and be able to look at this and comment about it and be heard on it. So it's good part of the policy. A lot of the policies I kind of skimmed through, but this was a good one.
Yeah. Good.
so getting back to that other one, is that gonna go to the next committee?
It'll be first reading next month.
So then
Nope.
I won't be on that
Yeah.
one. Well, I spent
Correct.
so much time looking at it.
You'll be informed and you can put your 2 cents in when we talk about it.
See Brian.
Joni, we can read it together.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, comments? Okay, could we have a motion to approve the policy review schedule first reading?
So moved.
So moved by Joni,
Second.
seconded by Monty. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. Okay, lastly here on the agenda, we have action item number 12, consent agenda. And I think we can do these together. The minutes for September 19th, 2022, and the accounts payable, the board report and
not
PC
COVID,
card
it's
report. Is something you want Brian's comments on, or
Or any questions?
I don't know.
questions for Brian?
Who was on that? I'm sorry. who
This
was-
one is Albertson and Blatt.
Do you have any questions, Jay?
No, I focused mainly on the other one that I argued about for a minute, so.
You didn't argue, you just discussed it.
I don't feel argument the way normal people do, so if I seem argumentative, I apologize. I like.
Yeah,
No, what's it say
Oh,
here?
sure it was. Y'all can talk about it later, but
You didn't argue.
I did not see anything.
Very well taken. Brian, I was gonna ask on the Peterson Family Wellness Center, we have kind of a co-op with them a little bit, or?
What happens there is
Oh.
once a year,
Okay.
that's our wellness program, and once a year, we pay them, it's an upfront fee, but then we're collecting from the employees throughout the year.
So it's for employees particularly, or students too?
No, just
It's just
employees. But
employees.
then we
Our
We get it
cost,
back.
our cost is, I wanna say 10% of the total there. The rest of that comes back to
That's
us.
interesting.
But the process we have to go is we have to front load it, because that's how they have to do the memberships.
Very good.
What was that? I missed the beginning, sorry.
It's the wellness
So it's
center.
$28,000.
Oh.
Yeah. The majority of that
We
is
get that
front
back.
load for the employees.
Yeah.
We've done this for 5-6 years.
Yeah. Very important thing for
Yeah.
employees, isn't it, wellness?
Mentally and physically.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda? Concerns or questions, discussion? Okay, could I get an approval to, could I get a motion for an approval on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Did Joni have that one?
No, Jay
I
Monty.
think JB.
Oh, Jay.
I'll second
Jay.
it.
Okay, good.
Jade, we'll give it to Jade, is that all right, Catherine?
Yes, and
Thank
Monty
you.
will second.
Monty, is that okay if you second it?
Yep.
Okay, and all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Okay, and last is H, the adjournment. Anyone want to make a motion for the adjournment of the meeting?
So moved.
So moved by
I'll second.
Joni and seconded by Jade. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Thank you all very much.
Joni and Jade.